We don't think about it much, but your roof? It's way more than just some shingles and wood. It's the absolute front line in a hidden, constant battle. And today, we're going to break down that fight and give you the intel you need to make sure you win. So let's really get into it. We think a roof keeps the rain out, right? But it's so much more than that. It is literally your shield against a constant attack of environmental forces that are all trying to get inside your home. So what are these forces, really? And how well is your shield actually holding up? To really see this battle up close, we're going to head to a sort of ground zero, Northglenn, Colorado. This place sits in a really unique weather corridor that puts roofs through the ultimate test. Honestly, the challenges here are just an amplified version of what pretty much every homeowner faces, which makes it the perfect case study. All right, so let's talk about the enemy's weapons here. The weather, especially in a place like Northglenn, isn't just kind of happening. Oh no, it's an active aggressor. And it has a very specific set of weapons it uses to try and break down your home's defenses. Weapon number 1. This is the big one, the most obvious and brutal weapon, hail. And we're not talking about some occasional nuisance. This is a recurring bombardment that physically attacks your roof. And get this, the frequency is just staggering. On average, Northglenn gets hit with hail 9 days a year. 9. Think about that. Nearly a dozen times every single year, your roof is getting hammered by falling ice, which cracks shingles and creates all these tiny weak spots. Okay, the next weapon is a bit more sneaky. It's silent, but believe me, it's just as destructive. We're talking about the sun. That intense, high-altitude ultraviolet radiation is just constantly baking the materials on your roof, day in and day out, making them brittle and weak. See, at 5,200 feet, the air is thinner, right? That means there's less atmosphere to block those harsh UV rays. This high-altitude exposure basically puts the aging process of your shingles on fast forward. It just fries the asphalt and knocks all those protective little granules loose. And rounding out the assault, you've got this nasty tag team of wind and wild temperature swings. The wind is physically trying to lift and tear shingles off. Meanwhile, that constant expansion and contraction, from scorching summer days to freezing winter nights, puts an incredible amount of stress on the entire system. So what does this all add up to? Well, this is the really critical takeaway. A manufacturer might say their shingles will last for 30 years. And sure, maybe they will in some perfect, moderate climate. But in the real world of Northglenn, that lifespan gets slashed by a third. That same 30-year shingle, it often fails in just 20 years because of this nonstop assault. Okay, so with all this going on, how can you tell your roof is losing the fight? What are the actual scars of this battle that you can see for yourself? Well, there are some really clear visible warning signs you need to be on the lookout for. All right, let's run down the checklist. First, check your gutters for a bunch of black sand-like stuff. Those are the granules. They're like the protective skin of your shingles, and when they're gone, the UV shield is failing. Look for shingles that are curling up or buckling. Those are just open doors for wind and rain. And check the flashing, the metal bits around chimneys and vents. If that's cracked, it's a direct highway for water. And the final, most urgent sign, water stains on your ceiling. If you see those, the enemy is already inside. And listen to this quote from the pros at Apex Roofing Denver, because it really hits home just how serious this is. They say, "We know a small leak turns into ceiling damage and mold growth fast. A small leak is never just a small leak. It's the start of a much bigger, much more expensive problem. We're talking structural damage and even mold, which can be a serious health risk." All right, so you've seen some of the warning signs. Your defenses are taking a hit. Now what? It's time to call in the reinforcements, the cavalry. And the professional process isn't about guesswork. It's a strategic plan to figure out exactly what's wrong and launch a solid counterattack. And when the pros come in, it's not just random. It's a clear 3-step plan of attack. It all starts with reconnaissance, a really thorough inspection to see the full extent of the damage and come up with a plan. Step 2 is the main event, installing the new parts or the whole new system. And finally, step 3 is a final inspection to make absolutely sure the defenses are back up, secure, and ready for action. Now this leads to the big question, the critical decision you, the homeowner, have to make. Do you repair or do you replace? Look, a repair is a great tactical move if the damage is isolated. A few shingles got ripped off in a storm. But if the whole roof is just old, brittle, and showing damage everywhere, a full replacement is really the only move that makes sense for the long haul. Trying to patch up an old, failing roof is just kicking the can down the road. But you know what? The best fight is the one you don't have to have. It's all about being proactive, not just reactive. So here's the playbook, the strategies every homeowner can use to beef up their defenses no matter where you live. First things first, you gotta know your gear. You're going to hear this term Class 4 impact resistance. All that means is that the shingles are tough enough to take a direct hit from a 2-inch hailstone without cracking. In a place like Northglenn, this isn't some luxury upgrade. It's absolutely critical armor for your home. Another key piece of your defense system is something called an ice and water shield. Think of it like a waterproof vest for the most vulnerable parts of your roof, like the edges and the valleys where water collects. It's your last line of defense against those nasty ice dams that can form in the winter and actually force water up and under your shingles. So, let's put it all together. Here's your simple 4-point defense plan. First, get your roof inspected regularly, say every 3 years, especially if it's over 10 years old. 2, always go outside and look for damage after a big storm. 3, make sure your attic has good ventilation. This is huge. It keeps your shingles from literally baking from the inside out in the summer. And finally, when it is time to replace your roof, invest in the right materials that are actually rated to win the battle in your specific climate. And all of this really brings us back to that one final crucial question. This isn't something you can just put off until you see a leak. The battle is happening right now, a constant pressure on your home's #1 shield. Knowing the enemy, recognizing the warning signs, and investing in the right defenses, that's the only way you're going to win. So, is your roof ready?